ready? That lady, I don't know who she is. Anyway, hey, welcome to our nonprofit leaders. And once you settle in, please add a comment to let us know that you're here. I'm Nancy Manning, founder of Power Your Mission and also Nonprofit Meetup. And our guest today is going to share their screen, so keep in mind that you have to click on the screen to make it large enough to see. And speaking of our guest, today our guest is Jaime Perris, CEO and founder of Minds Beyond Measure. Welcome, Jaime. Thank you for joining us.
Hi.
So I just want the people to know, where are you coming to us from? You're in Australia, are you not?
Yes, I'm from Australia, Melbourne, Australia. So it is around 3 a.m. in the morning.
Woohoo! Yes, she got up just for us. All right, well, let's get going with our topic today. And Jaime, can you tell us about the mission and programs of Minds Beyond Measure?
Yes, sure thing. I will share my screen with all of you. Okay, here we go. So hello, everyone, and welcome. So I'm just going to spend a few minutes with you just talking about how I got to develop the programs that I did and the process that went through my mind. But just keep in mind, this is not an exhaustive list. There is so much more to it, but I captured the main steps that went through my mind as I developed my programs. So just a quick recap. I'm the CEO and founder of MBM. So it's based in New York, but I also have work that I'm doing in the Philippines as well. So we're New York and Philippines based. And I've had, I should not have moved the screen. I've had around 20 years of experience in education, really passionate about inspiring and empowering children and youth and teachers. I've coached teachers across Malaysia, a few other Asian countries, Australia, my home country, and New York. And from a little girl, I think I developed a passion for helping underserved communities, hence the founding of Minds Beyond Measure. So when Nancy asked me to do this, I thought, you know what, I don't really think I have captured what went on in my brain. So it really helped me to capture everything. When I say everything, I mean these main 6 steps that you'll see. And they're not really steps because sometimes I went back and forth between each of these tips. So just keep in mind, this was not an exhaustive list and it's not precisely in order, and that's it. So I did go back and forth between these tips. So you'll see the first one, identify your passion or passions. Number 2, identify your skills and your strengths. 3, reflect and map out all of your thoughts and ideas. 4, define and refine your mission and goals. 5, uncover all the hidden resources around you. And 6, activate your mission. So I'm going to just do a dive into each one, and I will prompt you with some reflection questions. So hopefully you'll be able to reflect on each of these tips after this session, and it is being recorded, so you'll be able to access this again. So the first one, what are my passions? So I used a word cloud here on mentimeter.com. Highly recommend this app to brainstorm for whatever exercise or thought-provoking exercise that you come across in your life. And you could use this with your own nonprofit. And this is just something that I said, let me just explain in my head onto paper or onto Menti. So whatever you're comfortable with. I am a little old school, so I actually do like writing on paper as well. All the words that came to mind as I think of my passions. And these are just a few of the things that I had. And I have an actual notebook where you'll see a bunch of scribble. So here's some of them as well. So you see inspiring. I love inspiring, helping people, fighting for justice, music and creative arts. So they're just some of the things that I put on paper. After each tip, I have some reflection prompts for you to help elicit, some ideas for each tip. So I asked myself, what makes you come alive? What legacy do you wish to leave behind? For me, that was to inspire children, youth in underserved communities, and also inspire teachers. And the third question, are there things, issues, or areas that leave you feeling excited, fired up, or passionate about? or perhaps bothered about. Some of the things that I was bothered about was seeing injustice. So that really helped me identify, well, I do want to create programs that help fight inequalities and those who don't have access to education. So even asking yourself, what are some things that bother me, can help you identify some of your passions and then lead to the programs, which you'll see in a second how we get to that. So the second one, identify your skills and your strengths. This was a tough one. It's really hard for some of us to see what sort of skills and strengths we have because they come naturally to us, so we may not recognize them as easily. And here's a list of some that I've put there. They're not personally all my own, but I just found some of these and thought, I do identify with some of these, like teach. I'm driven, I'm bold, analytical, and you'll see that these skills and strengths actually tie in really nicely to the programs you develop and the mission you have with your organization, because obviously you need certain skills and strengths to help you build a very successful, effective program. So some key reflection prompts here that I really encourage you to think upon is, number one, write down as many skills and strengths as you can, and then two, ask those you trust, family, friends, colleagues, to identify skill strengths they see in you, and just see if there are any commonalities. And you'll see that you may run into people, family and friends that know you really well, saying the same thing about you. And that's what I found when I asked those that I trust around me in my circles. Number three, do you notice people always commenting on something you're naturally good at, or perhaps it's something that takes oops, sorry about that. It says supposed to be that takes you, it doesn't take you twice. It does, sorry, you don't even think about twice. So example for me, I was told by a lot of my friends, you are a great researcher. And I'm like, really? I just thought that was what everybody does, but I didn't realize it came naturally to me. I never got tired of studying or researching things for hours, and connecting to other cultures came very easily to me as well. And I didn't know that. I had people tell me that. The third one, reflect and map out all your thoughts and ideas. So this requires you if you're more digital, you love the digital world, use an app, use Google Drive or Microsoft, whatever you're comfortable with. But I went old school again. I had my own journal. I don't have it here. It's in New York City, but I had a journal, and I started to develop thoughts that, eventually led to my programs. But I noticed that I started to group my thoughts in different tabs or, different buckets. And I provided some of them here for you without looking at my notebook in New York. These are some that I clearly remember and still use to this day. And then I had tabs or little buckets of thinking, such as inspiration, words of encouragement, passions, mission. I always kept adding to my mission. Resources and connections was key. Who do I know? What connections do I have? And how can I use that to start developing and implementing my programs? Recording the process. So what I was kind of a little bad at that one because, like I said, I didn't have all of these thoughts captured, but I did record the process of, first developing my mission, looking at how do I develop a board? There's some legal implications I need to consider. What about my bylaws? So I started recording the things that I needed to get done, and in the order that I did those. New ideas, program ideas. This was key. Every time I thought of an idea for a program, I would write it down in this tab, and sometimes I would scratch it and then, call it something different. I would always change the name. And this was a really good idea because I got to see the process of how I eventually, came to my, final programs, their titles and the ideas and goals. Key reflection prompts here. Each time you think of something, capture it. That was what I did. I used my phone, a hand if I had to, or my notebook if it was nearby. But if I didn't have my notebook, I would just transfer all those thoughts over to the notebook. That was important because, especially if you're a creative person like me, or an entrepreneur, you constantly are thinking, being inspired, talking to people, and you want to capture those ideas. That can help lead to a really effective program as well, because you're thinking of things constantly. And the second one, creating the tabs that reflect your thinking to help organize your every thought and idea. The second part to this is a vision board. This was a very key part in my process of developing my programs. I built a vision board at the beginning of the year. So in 2019, when I developed Minds Beyond Measure, I made sure that I captured things that you see here, images, words, quotes. This is not my official vision board, but I have mine in New York. But I had things that captured a school in the Philippines. I had pictures of Filipino children. I also had New York City. I had quotes that inspired me. Travel. I had pictures of traveling because I knew I would go and start a school in the Philippines, which I'm in the middle of developing. Inspiring children and teachers. So having pictures of coaching or, consulting with teachers. Cultural assimilation, education equity. So I definitely encourage you to have a vision board. And some key reflection prompts here as well. They're the same ones as I had before, but just think of things, people that inspire you. I just want to add to that, things that make you come alive on your board. Capture that. Capture the legacy you want to leave behind. When you leave this earth, what do you want people to remember you as and your nonprofit as? And again, things that excite you, put them down. They could be quotes from people. They could be words, pictures, anything to capture your vision. Number 4, and here's a sample of my mission and goals. Continue to revisit and refine your mission and goals and ultimately your programs and your services. You're going to keep revisiting this. And, I'm always tweaking this, always. And I feel like it's never good enough. Hopefully, I'm not alone there, but it's something that we want to continuously revisit and refine, especially with our programs and services, because you'll find in some of the next slides that I'll show you that it's just something that you want to constantly evaluate. Is it an effective program? How do you measure your success? Make sure you're constantly refining that. And you see my mission there is to improve educational outcomes in underserved communities around the world. And I have my goals. These goals are led to my programs. And again, here are some prompts for you, recording any new ideas and feedback you have from targeted audience and stakeholders, and look at what other aligned organizations, I don't like to use the word competitors, they're, partners, mentors, whoever they are, look what they're doing to help you refine your programs, your mission, and your goals. Be intentional, start honing in on your surroundings, leveraging your resources. Look at your board. Your board is key. They know a lot, so use them. And there's something I use in New York, Quest Workspace, to help me get free workspace to host events in New York City, and I didn't have to pay anything. So make sure you use what's around you. And here's some prompts here for you. Who do I know that can share valuable insights or connections? What local connections do I have, such as LinkedIn? Power your mission. What organizations provide support for organizations and missions like mine? And are there any grants, funding, local community networking events, or free resources that I haven't tapped into yet? Activate your mission. The final one right here. So as I mentioned earlier, when you revisit, refine, and add to your programs, here are some samples of volunteer feedback surveys that I do to make sure that my programs that they're a part of are running smoothly and effectively. And I also use when I'm coaching teachers and when I'm working with clients for my youth programs, this is what I do. I provide surveys to make sure that I'm targeting the right audience in the right way and I'm meeting my mission as well. And to end, because I know we're running out of time now here, this is the final one, probably the most important step. Are there any areas that have been working really well, have been very effective? Are there any areas that I can improve or grow? And can I add a new program or add to an existing program? And remember to always gather feedback from your clients and your volunteers. And I came up with these 3 pillars on the right. And I will say they never came straight away. They came through the back and forth of these 6 tips that you have seen and that I've shared with you. But I will say that the 3 pillars that you see here have come about because of the constant revisiting, refining, and adding. So yeah, that is it. That is me, MBM. I know it was quick. It's a lot to share, Nancy, but hopefully you took some nuggets away with you to help you with your nonprofits. Thank you so much, Nancy.
Okay, so just a few things I wanted to add here. Just a minute. I don't know, do you stop the share screen or do I?
I will stop it for you. There we go.
Okay, so I wanted to say that it's clear you've been an educator. That was perfect. The visuals were perfect, the organization was perfect, and just the content was perfect. There's a few things I wanted to add. We're right at our time, but I wanted to say that that Menti, MENTI thing that allows you to brainstorm, it reminds me a little bit of, you know, that where you can put in a bunch of words and you get a cloud. Yes.
Cloud,
Yeah, it
yes.
reminds me of that, only the opposite, because it's giving you ideas. It's cool.
Yeah.
All right. And identifying skills and strengths is a lot like mapping to me.
Yes, correct.
And you're right, it is hard to identify your own skills and strengths. And so I think it's really powerful that you said, yeah, and ask your friends and family and others, you know. And then that reflection one, I think it was number 3. I love that, buckets of thinking. That's cool. And vision boards. I love vision boards because when I do strategic planning, I use a graphic recorder that puts it into visuals, what we're doing. I think it's real critical to have that layer, you know. And then let's see, number 5. I love it when anybody says being intentional. Because we sometimes have so many balls in the air that we forget to take a breath and stop and be intentional, you know. And then I don't know about the whole adding a program each year. That sounds a bit much and overwhelming to me.
Yes.
I mean, I think as long as, I mean, because that's a big time scaling that I don't know if most nonprofits have the capacity to do that, you know, but what I think is very interesting about your situation is there's very few nonprofits that get to start from the beginning. So it's really nice to have that view that you just gave us of what your process was and how successful you've been because you did it that way. And the fact that there was reflection so frequently in that process. So I don't know. I thought this was wonderful and very helpful for people.
Oh, I'm glad, Nancy. And I will say, Nancy, I will add, I agree, the adding on is definitely something. And I did add to a current program, like refining that, because you may not have the capacity to add a program each year. Yeah. I'm just very ambitious and sometimes that's overwhelming.
I know you are. And for those of you who haven't seen Jamie's website, go to Minds Beyond Measure and you will just see the creativity and energy there. I mean, it's just phenomenal what she's been able to do in a very short period of time, actually. And the other thing about Jamie that you guys should know is that she's willing to learn. And that's what you want with a nonprofit leader, is someone who's willing to learn. And she has been very willing to learn. And she soaks stuff up really quickly. So
I try.
Yeah, we did have a couple people, one that had trouble getting in, but and I had to turn off the comments, so I might have to look at those later. But listen, thank you, Jamie, for getting up at 2 o'clock in the morning in Australia to join us today. I really appreciate it. And
you're very welcome, Nancy.
When you're back to New York, get in touch, okay?
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Nancy, for allowing me to share. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Bye-bye.